Join us for a thrilling ride down memory lane as we revisit the original Ghostbusters. Meet Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, and Egon Spengler. These three brainiacs at Columbia University are obsessed with one thing: ghosts. Dr. Ray Stantz barges into their office and informs Venkman of the ghost sighting at the public library. After interviewing the traumatized librarian, Venkman, Ray, and Egon make their way into the basement, where they eventually encounter the spectral apparition of a woman, apparently a librarian. As a result of their encounter, Egon announces that according to his readings, it is hypothetically possibly to capture and contain a ghost. Unfortunately for the three, when they arrive back at their laboratory at Columbia, they discover that it is being emptied by Yeager, the university dean, who informs them that the university is terminating their research grant and kicking them off campus owing to their disreputable research methods and reputation. Venkman suggests that they use Egon's research to build a ghost containment unit and go into business hunting and capturing ghosts. Advertising themselves as the Ghostbusters, the three rent a dilapidated firehouse, purchase a decommissioned ambulance, and hire Janine to work as their secretary, but do not attract any business. Meanwhile, Dana Barrett, a concert cellist, returns home to her apartment at Central Park West after a rehearsal. She begins to put away groceries only to watch in astonishment as a carton of eggs begin cooking themselves on her kitchen counter. After hearing an inhuman growling from her refrigerator, upon opening the door she finds that the inside has been transformed into a portal into a bizarre alternate dimension populated by terrifying dog-like creatures, one of whom bellows Zool at her. Fleeing her apartment, she turns to the Ghostbusters for help, having happened to catch their commercial. Instantly attracted to her, Venkman agrees to return to her apartment under the pretext of investigating the matter, but by the time they arrive there is no sign of any paranormal activity. The Ghostbusters are on the edge of bankruptcy when they receive a call from the glamorous Sedgwick Hotel begging for their services. Guests and staff have reported seeing a gluttonous green specter made of slime floating around the corridors, and the concierge wants it removed before it threatens the hotel's business. Armed with nuclear-powered proton packs and ghost traps, the Ghostbusters hunt Slimer through the hotel corridors. During their hunt, Egon warns the others not to cross the streams of the proton packs, suggesting potentially devastating consequences. The Ghostbusters eventually manage to contain and trap the ghost, although not without causing much property damage. Nevertheless, the Ghostbusters' fame also coincides with a dramatic spike in ghost sightings and paranormal activity throughout New York City, and they are soon utterly overworked. In order to cope, the three Ghostbusters hire a fourth member, Winston Zeddemore. Still infatuated with Dana, Venkman does research on her paranormal encounter and discovers that Zool is the name of an ancient Sumerian demigod who in turn was the minion of a greater entity called Gozer. Increasingly charmed by Venkman, Dana agrees to meet him for a date, but on the night that they are to meet, she is attacked in her apartment by one of the dog-like demons she saw in her refrigerator. Arriving at Dana's apartment for their date, Venkman discovers that she has been possessed by Zool and is calling herself the Gatekeeper. Mistaking Venkman for an entity she calls the Keymaster, Dana makes several attempts to seduce Venkman, who rebuffs her each time and tranquilizes her after watching her growl and snarl like a demon and levitate 4 feet over her bed. Meanwhile, Dana's neighbor has been possessed by a creature calling itself Vince, the Keymaster, and wanders the streets of New York raving about the coming apocalypse until he is picked up by the police, who in turn take him to the Ghostbusters. The next morning, Walter Peck arrives with a court order that demands that the Ghostbusters shut off the power to the containment grid and cease business operations. Peck has the power shut down, at which point the containment grid explodes, freeing the trapped ghosts and triggering major paranormal chaos throughout the city. Peck blames the Ghostbusters and has them arrested, while Louis escapes in the confusion. In jail, the Ghostbusters consult architectural records of Dana's building and discover that the building's architect was Ivo Shandor, a mad doctor and cult leader who, following World War I, decided that society was too sick to survive. Consequently, he and his cult performed sacrifices on the roof to summon Gozer, the building having been designed to absorb paranormal energy and provide a doorway for Gozer to enter this universe. At Central Park West, Louis arrives and finally meets and shares a passionate embrace with Dana. The Ghostbusters manage to convince the mayor that the city and the world are facing an apocalyptic threat, and that by hiring the Ghostbusters to solve it, the mayor will practically guarantee his re-election. Convinced, the mayor dismisses Peck and arranges for a police and National Guard escort to take the Ghostbusters to the building, where they are cheered by a crowd that is gathered around the building in anticipation of the end of the world. The Ghostbusters enter the building and make their way to the ruins of Dana's apartment, where they discover a staircase leading up to a temple on the building's roof. There, they watch as Dana and Louie open a massive doorway and are transformed into demons, and a near-naked woman with red eyes crosses over from the alternate dimension. Egon identifies her as Gozer. After Ray's attempts to invoke bureaucracy to convince Gozer to return to her dimension of origin fail, Gozer attacks them. After the Ghostbusters use their proton packs on her, Gozer appears to dissipate, but a booming voice demands that the Ghostbusters choose the form of the destructor. Realizing that Gozer will take on the appearance of whatever the Ghostbusters think of and use it to destroy the world, Venkman orders them not to think of anything, but unfortunately Ray, trying to think of something that could not possibly be harmful, has already made the choice. The Ghostbusters watch in astonishment as a giant version of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man materializes in the city and strides towards the building. After blasting Gozer's new form with the proton packs does not work, in desperation Egon suggests that they cross the streams of the proton packs in order to create a huge surge of energy that will close the doorway to Gozer's realm. As they do so, the roof of the building is destroyed in a fiery explosion that incinerates Gozer and its minions, but the Ghostbusters manage to find shelter and survive. Although the outer forms of the minions are destroyed, both Dana and Louie have survived within the shells and are freed from possession, having no memory of what has occurred. Dana and Venkman kiss, and having saved the city and the world, the Ghostbusters return to the street to a hero's reception from the crowd. But as they drive off, no one notices that Slimer is once again roaming free. Ghostbusters became a pop culture phenomenon, a hilarious adventure that combined scares and laughs. So the next time you want to remember a movie or show, remember, who you gonna call? Flicks and TV.